What's going on YouTube? It's Tej back again with another video, and today I'm giving you my post-week 1 updated NFL power rankings. What a fun week 1 it was. Happy to talk about it with you all today. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video, and if you do, please hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, want more football content in your life, just hit that subscribe button and comment your takeaways from week 1. Give me your thoughts on this power ranking. Who do I have too high? Who do I have too low? I'd love to have your thoughts, so let's talk about these power rankings down below. Kicking things off, I switched the Texans and the Lions, right? You know, the Lions, they made it interesting. And if you saw my predictions and picks against the spread for week 1, I told you the Lions were going to make that game interesting. They would mount a comeback, and they did. They just narrowly didn't cover the spread at the time of the video. It was 7.5, and I think that's where it closed as well. They lose. The Texans, big win. So maybe, you know, they should be at 30 over the Jags. I think there's an argument there. I'll just trust that eventually the talent will start to show for Jacksonville. That's why they come in at 30, but they're still down 3 spots. And I'm really starting to worry about what this Urban Meyer era might look like, right? He talks so much about this innovation and using players in different creative roles. And like end around to Laviska Shenault was kind of like the apex of what we saw. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence didn't look all that good. 3 interceptions. Gave a couple of them right to Vernon Hargreaves, who has not normally been a high-performing cornerback. So definitely a lot of concerns coming out of week 1 for the Jags, but I do think they're still slightly better than the Texans. But I think there's an argument you could even switch those two, but the Lions do fall down to 32. Jets also falling down 3 spots, so do the Falcons. Jets are in trouble, especially if Mekhi Becton misses a long period of time, right? Like, that is a huge injury because that offensive line didn't look good with him out there, but at least he was solid. And then he goes down and George Fant just... it's rough right there. And that leads to bad play for Zach Wilson. It leads to him not being able to run the football effectively. And that defense on the other side is not good enough to win football games on its own. It is a nice complement to a high-scoring offense. And that offensive line is going to be similar to what we talked about with the other New York football team. It's just going to prohibit any sort of chance of this team being a 27, 30 points per game type of offense. Falcons falling down a ton. Their offensive line also looks putrid, and it's starting to, I don't want to overreact too much in this video, right? Like, I'm trying to be gradual with some of these changes, but the Falcons look like they might end up being one of the worst football teams in the NFL. Like, I thought the Eagles were 30, and as you can tell, they moved up 4 spots from 30. Honestly, I had to contemplate putting the Falcons there where the Eagles were because the offensive line wasn't good. Matt Ryan is always someone who has struggled against pressure. I think Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts still have a ton of talent, but you got to still get the football to them, and that defense is bad. So I am really worried about both the Jets and the Falcons. I just think they're 2 teams that have different outlooks for the future, right? Like Matt Ryan, clearly, he's got this year and he's under contract. He's going to make a lot of money next year, but that team is getting older and on the downswing, while the Jets have a ton of positive momentum moving forward in regards to young players, good hire in the offseason with the head coach. Robert Saleh is going to figure it out. So they're neck and neck for right now, but trajectorily speaking, I think the Jets are on the upward swing and the Falcons might be heading in the other direction. Panthers up a spot at 27. Darnold was fine. He was okay. The offensive line's still a concern. Really, Brian Burns looked solid. Hassan Reddick had some good reps. The defense overall was pretty encouraging, but again, I don't know how much of that is the Panthers defense looked solid versus that offensive line for the Jets was really, really bad, and they just could not get things going until it was too late. But Darnold looked okay, and they got the win, so they move up a spot. The Eagles, man, Jalen Hurts made a couple of throws where I was totally impressed. I've always been someone who's a little higher on Hurts, but that's to say I think of him as a future Tyrod Taylor in the making, or Tyrod Taylor, I beg your pardon. I just don't think ultimately he turns into a franchise quarterback. At least that was my barometer on him coming into the season. I know the Falcons defense is terrible, so again, I'm not trying to overreact here, but he made some throws. Like that first touchdown pass to Goddard, him rolling out right, it just looked like he belonged at the NFL level. He didn't look out of his way with the speed of the game. Nice progression, kept his eyes downfield, and then obviously the throw was perfect. It wasn't a throw super far down the field or anything, but that was what you want to see out of Jalen Hurts. So I was really impressed. And there are a lot of veterans on the defensive side of the football, so this could be a team that, they start stringing together some wins and they get into the playoff hunt, and they're moving up from 26. And the Bengals are also moving up 4 spots. I think their win was a little more fluky than that of the Eagles. Like the Eagles, obviously, they pounced on the Falcons. So maybe I should switch these 2 teams. And in hindsight, I wish I had. But the Bengals still beat a Vikings team that coming into the year I thought was worthy of being in the playoff discussion. I had them making the playoffs. We'll see. I don't want to, fall from my expectations for Minnesota too far, too quick. But they had a lot of problems they need to sort out, but we'll get to them later. The Bengals just found a way to win that game, and it was good to see Ja'Marr Chase reel in a long touchdown pass over 100 yards, gets the score. Burrow got comfortable, and the defense made some plays, right? You have to give them credit. That defense does not have the talent to where they're just going to shut you down, but if they can be opportunistic, create some turnovers, and put the ball back in the hands of Joe Burrow and that explosive offense, they'll rattle off some wins, and they'll be an okay team. And plus, Zach Taylor, I think, put together a solid game plan. I mean, in a lot of ways, he outcoached Mike Zimmer, which is crazy to say, just given what we have come to expect of Zach Taylor versus what we expect from Mike Zimmer. So, solid step in the right direction for the Bengals. It took the entire overtime period, but they did get the win, which has to count for something. On to our next chart of teams, the Giants down a spot. I mean, and I liked a lot of some of the throws that I saw from Daniel Jones, and he had moments, and Kenny Golladay makes a couple of nice contested catches, and some big plays from Darius Slayton. That offensive line is just, it's bad. Like, it's going to be rough, especially on the interior. Not ideal. And it's tough going against Bradley Chubb and Von Miller, right? Like, those two guys don't make it any easier on Nate Solder learning how to play right tackle, or relearning how to play right tackle. That's where he played when he was a rookie. And, second-year player and Andrew Thomas on the left side. Going against Chubb and Miller, not ideal. And the interior of the offensive line is going to be a problem. And, I mean, it's really sad to say Billy Price can't even earn a starting role on that interior offensive line. That is pretty rough. That's like Tim Tebow not making the roster for the Jags when they have the worst tight end group in the NFL. Like, if you can't start for the Giants interior offensive line, yeah, it's pretty much, the script has been written for Billy Price. That aside, the defense just didn't quite get after it. I know they still needed some edge rush help. Azeez Ojulari, I thought, would make a bigger impact to this game. Not like the Broncos having a all-world offensive line. It's pretty good, but it's nothing spectacular. And I don't know, I just expected a little bit more from that defense. So a little disappointed with the Giants. Down 2 spots, the Chicago Bears. And I mean, that game played as I expected. I didn't think it would be close. You could basically stop watching after half, right? That was about as close as it got. Andy Dalton didn't look great. Justin Fields got out in the field, and he became the talk of the Bears game, right? Like, he became the conversation. And the defense, though, I think is why I move it down a couple spots. I have been saying it all offseason if you've been around the channel. That cornerback group is not good. Like, Jalen Johnson put together 8 really good games before he got hurt last year, and I think he can be a good starting caliber cornerback. But outside of him, it is a lot of question marks. And Eddie Jackson, they don't use him in like the best playmaking free safety role that I think he would fit in. They instead try to use him in like the split safety role where he's doing a lot of different things as opposed to just letting him be a playmaker. And because of that defense got torched. And I mean, there were a couple of drives that instead of being touchdowns for the Rams, they ended up in just 3 because Khalil Mack single-handedly ended drives, getting pressures on third downs and things of that nature. So it could have been even worse if you didn't have a freak of nature like Khalil Mack, and Akeem Hicks did make some plays, especially early on in the game. So I'm worried about the back half of that Bears defense, and the offensive line is not good. David Montgomery had to do a lot after contact, and that's just not something that's going to always be there. Like, he is a good running back, but 81 of his yards, if I remember the stat correctly, came after contact, and that's just not something that's going to be stable. And, the question continues to be asked. When will we see Justin Fields? If they lose week 2 against Cincinnati, then yeah, I think you're going to see that change made right thereafter. Raiders staying pat at 22. This is just a team that you know what you're getting. And I think it's just going to take some time for that defense to really gel together and overall this team to improve as a unit on that side of the football. But they're going to put up points. And you might as well just start to think of Darren Wallace as team's number 1 wide receiver, right? Because if you think of it like that, then, Henry Ruggs is a nice 2. And I like Edwards. He's gotten a lot of hype out in the offseason. He's an okay number 3. And then you have Renfrow in the mix as a slot guy and things like that. Make the picture start to become a little bit clearer and makes you feel a little bit better about that situation, but I'm just still a little low on the Raiders overall. Colts down a couple spots, and I'll say it right away. Carson Wentz did not look bad by any stretch of the imagination. He didn't look great, but as I was saying in the offseason, a realistic expectation is 2018 Carson Wentz, early 2019, right? You're not going to get the MVP, but you're also not going to get the train wreck you had last year, and he looked good. But given they don't have an elite, game-breaking wide receiver, I just don't know what the ceiling can be. He didn't take that many shots down the field, and I don't know. The defense has holes at spots where if you're going to be a serious playoff competitor, you just can't have holes there. Like, I do worry about what that cornerback unit looks like, especially against a team like Seattle, where they're going to test you down the field. They're going to take their shots. And, we saw Tyler Lockett make a couple big plays. Russell Wilson's maybe the best deep ball passer in the NFL. So I'm not trying to overreact to say the Colts are going to be terrible against passes, 25 plus yards down the field or anything like that. But the Seahawks definitely gave him a reality check, and it's something Matt Eberflus and that defensive coaching staff are going to have to focus on moving forward. Washington football team down 9 spots. I tried to hold back on big climbers, which we only have one that made it more than double digits. And then you see Washington football team down 9, Vikings down 8. They're by far the biggest fallers. Part of it for Washington is Ryan Fitzpatrick out now officially 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, we'll see. At the time we're recording, Cam Newton has not been signed, but I would not be surprised to see a Newton-Rivera reunion. But Taylor Heineke played some decent football. He threw the ball down the field. He tried to make plays for Terry McLaurin, who made an unbelievable catch. I mean, one of the best I've ever seen. And only had 4 targets. So whoever it is, they need to try to facilitate a game plan where Terry McLaurin's get more than 4 targets. Logan Thomas is get more than 3. They've got to be able to push the ball down the field, because that's where this team will be at its best, when they can create big plays down the field on offense, be explosive, and then let their defense be great, simply put. But they're down 9 spots, partially due to the Fitzpatrick injury and because of the loss at home against a good team. The Chargers are solid, so it's more about the Fitz thing and the uncertainty at QB versus a loss in week 1. Broncos up a spot. I think they overall looked okay. I think you got the best of Teddy Bridgewater, the best of what we can expect. Did a good job moving the ball around. Jerry Jeudy's injury, I watched it live, and my stomach sank. I was like, oh, well, Jerry Jeudy's out for the year. Here goes another young wide receiver who we don't get to see play this year. This is going to be really unfortunate. But it's just a high ankle sprain, so it's going to be serious, and he'll miss a few weeks, but not season ending, which I'm happy to hear, because I want to see him get better in year 2. Plus, it helps that offense, right? You're going to eventually have Jeudy back with Sutton and Hamler, who I think they both look pretty good. Hamler did have one big drop. But overall, the offense was solid, and the defense was as advertised. It was really good. The pass rush was good. Lots of talent in the secondary. They're very deep at that part of the team. So overall, I think the Broncos were what we expected them to be. Vikings down by 8 spots. Part of it is you lose to the Bengals, who I had them at 25, right? And I argued that they maybe should have switched spots with the Eagles. So maybe you think of the Bengals at 26. And while I was happy with what I saw from the Bengals, I think they had some good moments. That is still not a team that's playoff caliber or ready to compete this year. So the Vikings, to lose to them, I know you're making the trip, you're on the road, week 1, weird things happen. I'm not trying to overreact. Vikings here at 18, still in the playoff mix. But this is a far cry from a top 10 team that I thought they would be coming to the year. The offensive line looks not good, simply put. I think they got robbed by a couple of bad calls that even got reviewed, and the refs seemingly just, they just stuck with it. Indisputable evidence. There wasn't enough to overturn the call. It's kind of tough to be a Vikings fan with that going on, but to still lose against a team like Cincinnati is just not a good way to start the year. I think they'll figure some things out. And another concern out of this was, like I said earlier, Zach Taylor put together a good game plan. In a lot of ways, he outcoached Mike Zimmer, which is not something I would have anticipated saying at the time of this recording. Pittsburgh Steelers up a spot. I think they looked really good. The defense in specific, right? Like TJ Watt, that strip sack from behind. Cam Hayward was fantastic. They got some good play from the secondary. Minkah Fitzpatrick knows the football. They blocked a punt, got a touchdown. This was like the Steelers that I grew up watching in the early 2000s, where the defense is just so good. They create turnovers, they manufacture points. And there were some times where the offense had its moments, right? Like Deontay Johnson's touchdown was ridiculous. I mean, you see the talent that kid has. I mean, he's unbelievable. And Big Ben had a handful of really ugly throws, but he also had a handful of really pretty to watch throws down the field. So it's a mixed bag, and I think it's still going to take some time for him to get comfortable with play action at a higher rate, RPOs that Matt Canada's calling. So it's going to take some time, but for Pittsburgh to go on the road and win at Buffalo with Bills Mafia going crazy, I mean, that's a big W. That's a good way to start the year. AFC challenge for Pittsburgh. Team number 16, Arizona, only up a spot, right? Like, I know they trounced the Titans, and I mean, they made Tennessee look pathetic, simply put. But this is the same thing that happened last year. The Cardinals got to these hot starts, so I'm trying to be cautious with how much I react to some of these teams looking good week 1. So only up a spot for Arizona. They do it again in week 2. we'll start to have different conversations against Minnesota, but even that could lead to me being a little bit lower on Minnesota versus higher on the Cardinals. But this team did put together an awesome performance. 5 sacks for Chandler Jones. Byron Murphy all over the field. He was a slot guy he was a fantastic slot corner last year, but now he's just knows the football, make a play type of guy who defends the slot at a high level as well. And then 5 total touchdowns from Kyler Murray. Still some concerns, right? AJ Green, second most routes run. DeAndre Hopkins only used in one spot. And then on the defensive side, Byron Murphy's all over the field. But if Chandler Jones doesn't get 5 sacks, what does that defense look like? Budda Baker, I think, is used in interesting ways as this basically sub-linebacker, safety linebacker hybrid. And you can do the same thing with Isaiah Simmons. And Zaven Collins gives you this inside-outside linebacker versatility. And J.J. Watt's obviously still a really good player. But it was Chandler Jones who put it all together and had 5 sacks. If he doesn't do that for you, is it someone else stepping up? Okay, then that's totally fine. I'll start to buy into what Arizona's going to be putting on the field this year. But if not, and Chandler Jones is shut out, does that secondary get exposed? We'll have to see. So I want a little bit more time before I fully hop on board the Cardinals bandwagon. Patriots down 3 spots, and that feels kind of harsh, but part of it's, the Dolphins beat them, so I nudged them up, and the Saints I had entirely too low to start, and the Seahawks look good. But I think the Patriots have to be happy. I know you're starting out the year 0-1, and no fan base wants to do that, but Mac Jones gave you what you were looking for. And if it weren't for Ramondre Stevenson fumbling on his first regular season carry, that's not going to happen all the time. And Damian Harris having it punched out by Xavier Howard, this 10-interception cornerback coming in to make a play like that. I don't even think Harris really saw it coming, so therefore ball ends up on the ground. He was great other than that, though. Mac Jones, after the first couple plays, settled in, and he looked like the best rookie quarterback. The defense was really solid, only allowed 17 points. I know it's against Tua, and Tua had his moments where he was okay, but not necessarily great. I think there's a lot of things to take out of this game for New England, despite the loss, to feel happy. And in specific, I remember watching this play, about 5 minutes left in the third quarter. It's a wheel route to James White, and Mac Jones just puts it in a basket. And as a fan of a team in the AFC that has had postseason run after postseason run, stalwarted by Brady and the Patriots, watching Mac Jones make that play gave me chills. And all I could think is, here we go again. That's the Brady type of play that there's a linebacker on the running back. James White's got good hands. He's an extension of the passing game, and there's just not much you can do to defend it when you make that perfect of a throw. So, again, a lot of positives to take away for New England despite the loss. Dolphins, though, you get the win. You move up a spot. You're over New England. And, man, I wasn't entirely sure this defense would be able to be so good at manufacturing turnovers, but week 1, they did it. And that was the difference in the game, right? Like, in a lot of ways, I'd say New England was the better team for a majority of the game, but Miami made the decisive plays. So where New England may have been in the driver's seat for a long portion of this contest, the decisive moments, the things that you remember after the game's end, it was Miami making them. And, it includes that fumble forced by Xavier Howard, which ultimately proved to be the difference. Tua, I think, had some good moments. It started to get a little, it kind of regressed back to what we saw last year in the second half. The offensive line still isn't great. Liam Eichenberg, he had one pass set where he got just obliterated by Josh Uche, but part of that, I think his feet got tangled up, but all I remember seeing is him on his back with Uche looking down on him. But other than that, I think he played pretty well, filling in for Austin Jackson, and you get the slot fade route and a touchdown for Waddle. Devontae Parker played really good. Excited to see them add Will Fuller. That gives them another element, another quality wide receiver out on the field. So I'm excited to see what this Dolphins team can grow into being, especially if they continue to be so good at manufacturing turnovers. And part of it has to go credit to Brian Flores. I don't know how much the scheme itself can be translated into turnovers created, but whether it's scheme, how he talks to the guys, how he coaches them up, he's doing a fantastic job, especially on that side of the ball. On to the New Orleans Saints, and I'm going to come out and say it. I'll sign an apology letter if there is one. The Saints were too low at 24. I was fading them because I thought they were a little too top-heavy, and all those stars, especially on the defensive side, were starting to get old, and I just wasn't sure it was going to be something that was sustained. Jameis looked good in that preseason start, but it was only 23 dropbacks. Need a bigger sample size. Can the offensive line stay healthy? What does that wide receiver room look like? Marquez Callaway only had one catch, by the way. But all that to say, I mean, Sean Payton has the offense efficient, and that defense is suffocating. And I know that 5 touchdown passes for Jameis Winston is what people want to talk about, and he did look good. He looked like what Sean Payton needs him to be. Like minimum, if you can get that where he's going to be smart, not turn the ball over, make good decisions. He doesn't have to be crazy upside Jameis. He just needs to not be erratic Jameis. That defense was suffocating. Oh my word. They made Green Bay look like a team that's missing a perennial all-pro left tackle in David Bakhtiari. They made it evident that Bakhtiari wasn't playing. And that's not to say Elgton Jenkins was terrible or the entire offensive line was a travesty, but if you have Bakhtiari, you can slide Jenkins back to left guard, and the whole unit then just starts to look a little bit better. But man, Jordan was good. Davenport was fantastic. Paulson Adebo making a play, getting that first pick against Aaron Rodgers. They turned down one of the most electric offenses from a year ago, and I mean, that's simple as that. Aaron Rodgers already has like a third of the interception count that he had all of last year. I mean, what an incredible defensive showing. And now Dennis Allen, I mean, ton of credit, the DC for New Orleans. He put together a fantastic game plan. The Saints executed it, and then the offense was as efficient as it gets. They kept moving the chains. They ate up the clock, and not even a way that like we're going to field Alvin Kamara and we're just going to play keep away from Aaron Rodgers. No, they were just good, and they were getting first down after first down after first down, and they just didn't need Jameis to go 500 yards, 5 touchdowns to beat Aaron Rodgers. They needed good defense. They got short fields by playing the field position game and also creating turnovers, and then Jameis made the throws he needed to, and he didn't make bad decisions. So really impressed with what I saw with the Saints. They're up by 11 spots. Seattle comes in at number 12. This team looks like what we expected them to be at the beginning of the year, and actually maybe a little bit better because that defense looked pretty solid. And I said earlier, Carson Wentz looked okay. He didn't look bad by any stretch. But Seattle's cornerback group against a not great wide receiver room in Indianapolis, they held their own, and they were solid. They didn't create any alarming situations where it's like, okay, yep, it's going to be a train wreck in Seattle. So that's a good first step in week 1. And they had a decent amount of pass rush. They didn't get gashed by the run. And then the offense was what we always see it be, especially at the beginning of the year. Big plays. Russ is cooking. One of the best downfield passers in the league. Tyler Lockett, it's amazing. Nobody talks about him as like a top 10 wide receiver, but he has warranted the chance to be in that conversation. He gets behind so many DBs, and he's just a big play waiting to happen. So I also liked Gerald Everett and how they used him. He's just a fun, athletic tight end to watch and something that Seattle hasn't had. So I like what I saw from the Seahawks in week 1. Chargers coming in at 11. I'm buying into the hype. I was reserved not to do it before the season because, it seems like late August, early September is just like the time to be a Chargers fan. It's when all the hype gets rolling. Yeah, but it looked good week 1. The offensive line played really well against the best pass rush in football in my books. Herbert, dude, he just looks like a guy who belongs in the sense that he didn't have to do anything splashy, but just mundane, normal things that bad quarterbacks can't execute. Herbert it's like the back of his hand. It's just there. And that's insane to say for a year 2 quarterback. He just has it down pat. And then he can make the big plays when you need. Like when you need a game-winning drive to seal the deal late in the game, converting third down after third down after third down. Yeah, Herbert's good enough to do that. And that's exactly what he did. The defense gelled and came together a lot quicker than I anticipated. Part of it, Fitzpatrick gets hurt. You're facing Taylor Heineke. This is going to be a boom or bust Washington offense. And week 1 was more of the bust than it was the boom. So time will tell. We'll see how it looks week 2 against Dallas for sure. That's going to be a great matchup and a good test for the Chargers defense. But week 1 they looked really good. And Brandon Staley, proving why he was one of the best hires this past off season. Titans down 2 spots at 10. I'm not hitting the panic button, but it was a little weird that Arizona could stop the run so well against Derrick Henry in that rushing attack. But Henry typically gets out to slow starts. What I'm more concerned about is, why did it take an entire quarter plus to get A.J. Brown or Julio Jones a target? And then this team that was one of the most play action heavy last year, one of the fewest play action rates in week 1, and then still the total targets for Brown and Julio just not there. For Julio and Tannehill, I think it'll take some time to gel that chemistry, but no excuse for A.J. Brown and Tannehill. So I'm kind of worried about that, and Ferkser for that matter too. He was relatively quiet down the stretch. And then that defense, the pass rush, it just didn't get there. And man, it is going to be tough for this team to be good if Harold Landry isn't creating pressure. I was just looking at the PFF stats, and his 4 hurries, 1 was unblocked and 3 were cleanup. Like, he didn't generate any pressure on his own, and that is a big problem. And Bud Dupree didn't do anything to really win you over. Jeffrey Simmons was solid, but he can't do it all on his own. And that secondary, while I like pieces of it, it still needs a good pass rush in front of it to hit its full stride. So I am concerned. I think it might just take some time for Tennessee to really get the ball rolling and have things start to click. Cowboys up 4 spots to number 9. They gave the reigning Super Bowl champs, and spoiler alert, my number 1 team in the power rankings, a run for their money. And right, think about the missed PAT for Greg Zuerlein and the missed field goal. 2 missed field goals, but I don't really care about the one before half, 60-yarder, whatever. Wasn't expected to be made. But 4 points otherwise left on the board by Greg Zuerlein. That's the difference times 2. So, interesting to look back at that game with some of the missed chances. Now, all that to say, this team also settled for 3 as opposed to getting touchdowns on a couple of occasions inside the red zone. One of those ultimately ended up in the missed field goal as well. And on the other side, they created 4 turnovers in a game where I don't think anybody was really expecting 4 turnovers to be created. One of them's, a Hail Mary interception, so it didn't really matter. But that to say, assuming that turnover comes down, but then they are able to elevate their efficiency inside the red zone, turning instead of 3, turning those more into 7s, those could balance out to, I think, a pretty solid equilibrium. And overall, I think the Cowboys are a really solid team. And if they can give the Bucs a run for their money, you have to feel good about it if you're a Dallas fan, which just is painful to say. I'm not a Dallas hater, but that fan base, I can hear them getting riled up from here. Ravens up a spot. And I know I haven't talked about it because he got hurt right after I filmed my preseason power rankings, but Marcus Peters is going down, so does Gus Edwards, but Latavius Murray's going to be fine. Like, that is just a offensive scheme that I'm not going to say I could run for 5 yards a carry, but just about anybody who plays at the NFL level can be good enough in that system. It just comes down to having enough bodies. So they bring in Murray. He's a proven veteran. I think he'll be okay. Lamar Jackson's the biggest threat coming out of that backfield other than, J.K. Dobbins, but even with Dobbins out there, I think Lamar Jackson gets enough of the attention. Anyways, that aside, losing Peters definitely hurts, and it's kind of interesting. You look at those 2 injuries, and they come at the team's biggest strength, right? That cornerback duo with Humphrey and Peters that just knows how to create big play after big play and just cause so many turnovers and headaches for the opposing offense. And then the rushing attack. So the bright side is that those 2 elements are going to continue to be good, and they're going to still be part of the strengths of these teams. Baltimore's going to run the ball highly efficient, and Marlon Humphrey alone makes enough turnovers to make a team happy. And, maybe they make a trade for a veteran cornerback. There hasn't been one at the time of this recording. Or maybe some of these young guys step up. Overall, I think that unit's going to be fine. Really, this team moves up because a couple of teams at the top had some rough week 1, so they moved down. And because of that, Ravens have to move up by de facto. And I think once we get a better look at this offense, especially with Rashad Bateman, maybe in 2 to 3 weeks' time, that's when I'll fully get a look at what this team will be. Once I can get a good look at what this offense and specific the passing attack looks like at full strength, that's when I'll have a good gauge on, is this team really a top 8 team, or are they a little bit lower, or maybe they're even better. So time will tell the story there for the Ravens, but they are up a spot. Hold the San Francisco 49ers at 7. Look, I know the Lions made that game interesting, and that's not necessarily something you want to see, but San Francisco also dominated for the first, half, 2.5 quarters, 3 quarters. The Lions weren't even in the same stratosphere as the 49ers were. Now that they, took the foot off the pedal and Detroit made it a game, just like I said they would. Didn't quite cover the spread, but overall I think San Francisco is going to be okay. They have another nice, easy matchup, or so we thought, nice, easy matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe that's one I should be paying more attention to this upcoming week, but still feel confident about San Francisco. Really, the big loss out of that one was Jason Verrett, because he was a cornerback with enough talent to be a CB1. Now I don't think this team has that, and I just have to wonder, I don't know what the league's status for the Richard Sherman situation is after his off-the-field incident, and that, warrant came out right as it felt like Sherman was going to sign with a team a week or 2 later. You got to feel like they're making a call, right? Like to reunite, bring him back in, and at least give him, or give that defense a veteran presence that knows the defense well. But I don't know. This could be strictly speculation, but the pass rush, the front 7 played so good that despite a weak secondary, they're going to be able to hide some of those holes. And D'Amico Ryan's going to continue to get better as a defensive coordinator as well. Packers down a couple spots. Man, that was bad, right? I don't know what it is about the city of Jacksonville, but the Packers and Aaron Rodgers do not play well there. Aaron Rodgers, nearly, a third of his interception count from last year in 1 week, and he just made decisions I've never seen him make. Like, even the first pick, him stepping up and just you got to throw that ball away. Like, he leaves it behind the receiver, and he's just trying to do too much there. You're already down by 14 points. You got to get points on the board. You got to start cutting into that deficit. And then the arm punt out of the end zone where Marcus Williams is just there waiting for it. I don't know if I've ever seen Aaron Rodgers do something like that. So definitely a weird game. But maybe it's just because Rodgers wasn't there in the offseason. I know he knows the offense, but it just takes some time to get settled into the rhythm of things and get that chemistry back with some of your teammates. That's what I'm hoping the case is. So the Packers are down a couple spots. That's definitely an interesting team to monitor. Also, that defense didn't look great. Like, not everybody was bad, right? But Kevin King was getting picked on. Rashawn Gary didn't look anything crazy. This is supposed to be the year he breaks out and makes a ton of big plays and proves to be that starter opposite of Zadarius Smith. But the defense left a lot to be desired, just as the offense did. I'm keeping the Bills at 5. I know they lost at home, but, I look at what's below them. I'll still take them over the Ravens right now, and the 49ers didn't have the best of weeks, so I'd still take the Bills there, and the Packers looked rough, so give me Buffalo as of right now. Ultimately, I think it was more of a rust-bust type of game where Josh Allen didn't look his best. I think he'll bounce back week 2. The offensive play calling wasn't necessarily fantastic either. And they waited a little bit to get the offense going, and then they're up 10-0 at half, and it feels like, okay, Buffalo now is going to start to pour it on. It's going to be like a repeat of last year where the first half's kind of close, and then the second half, Bills pull away. And then it just never happened. They never got into that gear where they just proved to be better than Pittsburgh. Instead, it was the other way around. But I'm not hitting the panic button. Weird things happen week 1. The Steelers have been prepping all offseason for that game, going against maybe the second best team, third best team in the AFC. That's going to be something that the Bills have to adjust to, as being the team on the calendar that teams are prepping for, especially if that game's in Buffalo. It's going to garner a lot of attention from whoever they're playing. So that's something they'll have to adjust to, and I think Josh Allen will start to play better moving forward. I know he wasn't great week 1. He's never been. Even last year, he wasn't great against pressure. And Pittsburgh's a team that generates a lot of pressure. They did it a little bit of a different way this year, or in this matchup too. So maybe that played a factor. Steelers playing pretty much just 4-man rushes and a lot of cover 2 high safeties against Allen, taking away the big play potential. So we'll see how the Bills are able to adjust from that. But maybe that Steelers defensive change stalwarted the Bills offense enough. Rams up a couple spots, and man, I'm trying not to get too carried away. I almost moved the Rams up to 3, but I decided I'd keep them here. Moved up a couple spots. Man, that offense. There's some moments in that Sunday Night Football game. Oh my gosh, this team's going to be so fun to watch. And this game lives up to what I had said in videos prior. I think this team gets out to a red-hot start. The offense is clicking. I'll take the Rams week 3 against the Bucs at home, and they're going to be the talk of the first quarter of the season. This offense looks great. Matt Stafford, early season MVP candidate. Now, will it continue and carry into the back half of the year? I'm not entirely convinced it will. Time will tell. But coming out the gates, I knew this offense was going to be fantastic. And it starts play 1 with Stafford. Can we talk about this? He rolls out left, double route across the field, perfect spiral, hits Jefferson. I'm not saying the ball hit him so hard that he fell over, but then he falls down, gets back up. Oh my gosh, that play was insane. I was going crazy when Stafford threw that dot and they got the touchdown. Man, and Van Jefferson was one of my breakout candidates for this year. That was filmed before Deshaun Jackson was signed, but this offense looks really, really good. And this defense, I think, is going to be more akin to what the Patriots have made their bread and butter on, right? Bend but don't break. They'll let you travel down the field, but then when you get in the red zone, Jalen Ramsey's going to make a play. Which, can we talk about his new role? That's a really interesting concept, and I'm interested to see if it works, how it transcends to other teams. Don't really have a great example off the top of my mind, but maybe if like Nashawn Wright proves to be something in Dallas, where you have these big physical corners, but they don't, not really Jalen Ramsey here because he runs a 4.4 coming out of the draft, but Nashawn Wright, not somebody who ran a great 3-cone, not necessarily a guy who runs in the 4.2s, 4.3s, but he's 6'4" and he's physical. Playing something like that near the line of scrimmage when you lose your slot corner is an interesting thought. So I like what they did with Ramsey, and there were a couple plays where ball was at the line of scrimmage and he just blew up the screen, or he was breaking up passes, and it's just like, that's what you can do by having him so close to the line of scrimmage and just letting him make plays on the football. So I'm really interested by how they're using him in that new role. And then, going back to my point, once you get in the red zone, Aaron Donald just kicks it up to another level. So this team, I think, is going to be bend but don't break on defense, and then that offense. Check mark on the week 1 box. It looked a lot of fun. It still can get better. They didn't run the ball that well until the very end of the game, but yeah, I liked what I saw from the offense. Browns come in at 3. Look, they lost by 4 at Arrowhead to my number 2 team, so I don't have them moving. I thought about switching them with the Rams 3-4, but I'm staying pat. And this game was out without OBJ. I didn't overall think it was the cleanest football game. Browns, obviously, a lot of turnovers late from Baker Mayfield. Nick Chubb is not someone who fumbles often, but he fumbled in this game. So if you're a Browns fan, I really wouldn't panic. If anything, I might be feeling more reassured that we can go one possession away against the Chiefs. And really, you could look back at this game and look at that throw from Mahomes to Tyreek Hill, 75-yard bomb. And it's one where it made me think back while Mahomes was making the play. It all happens in an instant in your mind, where DeShone Kizer, when he was playing for the Browns, just rolls back, trying to make something happen in the pocket, and then makes just this stupid dead or alive type of play when you're playing in the backyard. 500 alive, pops it up, and it's just an easy interception. They were playing Green Bay. Mahomes did something similar to like that, but he's just so good, and he throws it behind John Johnson, who's not looking, and Tyreek Hill is just too fast. Once he has the ball, it's gone. Like, that play, ultimately, you could see as the difference, and it's just something that nobody can do. So if the Browns limit the turnovers and in turn limit the amount of possessions that Mahomes has the chance to make plays like that with, then I think you're sitting in a good spot. Kansas City 2, Bucs 1. Don't need to talk about this a whole lot. They both won. They both looked really good, and they looked like what we expected, right? The Bucs offense looks solid. It looks deep. I have Mike Evans in a couple leagues, so if you have Mike Evans, comment L in the chat. That's a tough one. The defense has some playmakers, and they got picked on a little bit in the secondary, but I think that's also part of Dallas is going to have a really good passing attack. And Kellen Moore also. I didn't talk about this with the Cowboys, but Dallas's OC, Kellen Moore, called a great game. Really liked what he was drawing up. And then for Kansas City, it was the Stars getting the job done. They'll get Tyrann Mathieu back here pretty soon. And I think the defense gets better. I'm interested by Chris Jones playing that D-end edge role. I think he looked okay week 1. I think it's only going to get better as the year goes on. But one last thought before we close out this video. Can we talk about the Bucs running it back? It's like the 2015 all-decade team. Antonio Brown's back to his peak status. Brady's still playing like a freak. 2 touchdowns for Gronk. Oh my gosh. Like I said, is this 2015? Incredible. But that is going to do it for my post-week 1 NFL Power Rankings. Tell me what you think down in the comment section. Who do I have too high? Who do I have too low? Who's your favorite team? Where do you think I should have them ranked next week? Hope you all enjoyed today's video. And if you did, please hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, want more football content in your life, just hit that subscribe button. That's going to do it for today's video. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Tej. I'm signing off.